Look at that. But how come I can't hear you?
You should be
Hello?
able to hear me now. Hello?
I can hear you. And I'm not
Okay.
sure, I think the audio,
I think people should be able to hear us if they're
well, that's good.
jumping in.
We'll be on our best behavior if any of the 27 people out there can hear us, because 27. So you don't think I should put on my tie today, Kathryn?
Oh, I was for it. I think it's a cool tie.
Pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I promise not to shake my table so I get the earthquake effect on my camera. 30 are in.
We talked about some music at the beginning. That would have been nice.
Next time,
Next time.
I'll pick out something cool. $37. Let's see if all of our 170 some odd. I don't remember the total count. It was over. I think it went over 175 right before I checked. But just because people register doesn't mean they actually come and watch the show. So
That's true. We'll have a recording after. So
actually, I have a number of people who asked for that, so that's good. Oh, I know you did too. So.
mm-hmm.
They can hear us. You can send out a smiley face.
Nice.
Awesome. There's some.
We're a quality out, yes.
You got to keep me honest on that chat, because with this many people, they're starting to come in now. When it jumped up to 46, and I don't know.
Or countdown's over.
Okay, I'll stop the screen share. There we go. We're in. Let me just give me 1 second here. Excuse me, everybody. Let me just close this and come back over here. Welcome, everybody, to this Singular webinar. We have quite an audience.
Our first webinar.
It's our first webinar.
Yeah.
It's our first big webinar that we've opened it up to the entire user base. We got a very good response, I have to say. A lot of people signed up, registered. So thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for registering. Thank you for using Singular. And I am joined today, my right-hand rock star, who's actually on my left, Kathryn, who's at the end of that support portal, who does an amazing job, not just in the support, but so many other things at Singular. So Kathryn, thank you for joining today. You're going to keep me honest.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
yes,
you're going to keep me honest. You're going to keep me on point. You're going to field questions along the way from this great group that's watching us here today. And so everyone who is watching, please feel free to throw questions. We can take pauses along the way as I build this composition, and Kathryn will traffic those questions and keep me on point. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go over to a screen share.
As you're doing that, I'm just gonna, as I keep us honest here, I'm gonna drop in a link to a written version of the tutorial that we're about to dive into. If you learn that way, or in tandem with visual learning, so that's there. And as we go through, I'm gonna drop down some milestones that will help us kind of figure out where we are in the process of building a composition. So go ahead, Steven.
That will certainly help our audience and certainly help me. So you can, how's my screen quality? Resolution look good before I dive in?
Yeah, how's your Zoom? Are you at, we like to do like what, 125 so people can see?
Yeah.
It gets a little granular on Composer, so.
That's 110?
Not bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
we'll
let's
go.
dive in.
Composer.
So I'm going to make a first assumption that everyone who's watching here either has a Singular account or is part of an organization that has a Singular account. So when you start a brand new Singular account, for some users out there, it's just the most basic of things that I think is not maybe super intuitive, but you will have no directory structure here whatsoever. You're in the dashboard when you first launch, when you first enter Singular. And you can immediately go make a new folder, call it whatever you'd like, and name this new folder, for example. And then from a new folder, make folders within folders, and you can import things and build within these directory structures. So I've seen a number of customers who right out of the gate, they're starting in to build and they just, everything is here at the root. It's not the end of the world, but keep in mind, you can make a nice organizational structure here. So under demo, I have got building a basic composition, and it's in here that I'm going to create a blank composition from nothing. We're going to build a simple lower third or super, and we're going to then control it using Singular Studio. So that was sort of the basics of the dashboard, very, very basic light touch on the dashboard. The dashboard is deep. There's lots of things to dig around and see, but we're going to go right into this new button and go into composition. And let's just call this demo 1. And you can see it drops it here. It's listed under composition. Now, just a side note, before I even double click and open it, under this all button, I've had a few users that get confused here. For some reason, they might have this selected to control apps and they don't realize I don't see anything. I lost all my stuff. It's a little bit of a gotcha here. Just be mindful of this displaying all the things that are within this folder. You can have many different types of files inside of a folder. So we have a composition. It's listed as such. I'm going to double click it. It opens up another browser tab. And again, simple reminder, we're always in the browser in everything that we do in Singular because we're completely cloud-based. So what we do by default in a new composition is we create what we refer to as a subcomposition. And it's an organizational structure, a mechanism to organize your overlays so that each overlay should be built in its own subcomposition. Again, what you're looking at here is a composition, and then you have subcompositions within it, and we can name them accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead, and Kathryn had a good idea for this demo. Just go ahead and delete this one so that we start with absolutely nothing. So where do we make a subcomposition? Under Add, New Subcomposition, and don't forget there's shortcuts there too. As you get more advanced, these are really powerful. There's a Control S and B for widgets, which I'll jump into in a minute, and groups. So that really speeds things up. Another thing that speeds up, if I hit Enter on the keyboard, I can rename this, or I could double click on it. That's just pretty self-apparent. I'm just going to call this one lower. Oh, there's my first typo. Not going to be my last one of the day. Lower third 1. Okay. So the next thing
I just want to interject really fast on this too. Another way to think about a subcomposition is a container for your overlay. So you want to make sure you build all of your lower third assets inside of this subcomposition, this container. And we'll show you in a moment why that's important, because Studio reads subcompositions. And if you build in the root, you're going to lose that control ability over your overlay graphics. So
it's a very good point.
Yeah.
And because I think some users come in and they immediately start dropping things in, not in a subcomposition, and they will not show up in Studio for structural reasons, the way we built the platform. And another point, which sort of slightly changed from the way I normally do demos, Kathryn had a good point. I'm going to immediately open up the composition navigator. And Kathryn had a very good point on this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take this. Oh, I apologize. Let's go F11 so we can go. Is that better, Kathryn, if I go full frame so we have no?
Yeah, that's probably better. We know we're in a browser at this point.
Okay, so in the composition navigator, this is where I can actually, you know what? Let me take that out for a second. And I'm just going to refresh the browser page for one quick moment. Okay,
and that's a good thing to do if you see any, just really quick, anything just lagging in your, that's a standard sort of thing in the web. If you guys are working in other software, so refreshing always is a good idea.
Refreshing the browser page is a good note to say that, you know, and any web page, when you have things that aren't drawing correctly or you have sort of drawing anomaly of the web page itself, is to do an F5 on the keyboard if you're on the PC, or I think it's Command R to refresh the browser page. So in any event, I brought up the composition navigator, which is a floating panel right here. and I'm going to assign it to a logic layer. And I'll come back to this, the meaning of what this is in a moment. So let's call this, I'm going to put this in a logic layer called lowers, or just lower, singular. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead and close that. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Because this is quite a powerful little feature. Okay, so let's go back to our subcomposition called lower third one. Now, to go down into this.
Wait, can you pause? Sorry, one
Yeah.
more thing. Can you reopen the the composition navigator? People may have not seen that if you went too fast. It's that little button right there to toggle it in and out. I think there's control, what is it, F? I don't use shortcuts as much as I should, but
Control F on
just in case you missed that.
Yeah, Control F, good point. Control F on the PC and Command F on the Mac. Okay, so I'll go ahead and close that. We'll come back to that navigator. So now we need to go start adding some widgets into this subcomposition. So I've simply clicked here. I can also I can hit right arrow on the keyboard, left arrow on the keyboard to go back up. And you can see where we are in the structure of the composition tree, right? See, I'm in demo 1. I can also click here to come back. See, so right arrow. Now I can start dropping widgets in here. Now, by default, we put a group in here for you, and you could rename this. It's sort of dealer's choice, whatever is most comfortable for you. Generally speaking, back up to the root level, I usually will call this overlays, because that's what these are essentially, or you could call them subcompositions, but generally speaking, I might suggest that you call these overlays because again, that's what they are. So down into the subcomposition of the lower third. So let's add something really basic. These are commonly used widgets. So widgets are the building block of any overlay. So if I drop a rectangle in there, we get a full rectangle into the render output window here, and I'm going to turn on bounding box, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's a blue bounding box around the rectangle. Now I could scale here the rectangle here, but what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do the scaling operations here at the parent level. Okay, so right here I'm just going to unlock the X and the Y, and let's just take this to like 10, and then let's bring it in to say like maybe 60. And then I'm going to anchor it down in the bottom. You can see the bounding, with the bounding box up turned on, I can see the little blue dot moves down. Let's go -10. Again, a huge variety of participants today. So some of this might be very, very basic, but hopefully you'll pick up some new little tips and tricks along the way if you're a little bit more advanced in your stages of building. So in any event, the other thing that happened when I dropped that rectangle here, I added another one. Let's go ahead and delete that. Is by default, let's just jump over to animation. By default, we drop in a fade animation, okay? So it's just fading up and fading down. Now, clearly you could move this over. So now it's gonna take place here after 0.2 seconds in. I can also extend this here. I can also edit it here. This is sort of like a constant, it's an easy to get to tool for your animation settings. But what we'll do is let's add at the very root level, let's just add a new animation. So to do that, simply click here and let's do a translate. And let's tell the parent to go down over a second, power 3. Power 3 is a velocity curve, which I'll touch on later, but I think that's not for the purposes of this very first piece. So there you go. It's over a second, it's coming in and it's coming out. Okay, and on the fade, we'll leave that fade in there, but let's just make that an even ½ second. So again, in and out. Now the animation is simply in, and the out is an exact reverse. We just reverse the timeline. If you want 2 animations, a different out than the in, then enable 2 timelines. And again, now 2 buttons show up. This is the out. So on the out, again, there's the by default, we drop in a fade. So on the out, it's simply going to fade out.
If you want to turn off that bounding box, it helps to see those animations a little bit better. Sometimes it's.
There you go. And let's just do that on the out. I'm just going to add, again, I clicked right here and I'm going to do a translate. And on the translate out, let's send it to the right side of the screen, power of 3. Power of 3 is sort of my go-to velocity. It's kind of, so it sort of moves as it fades out. And if we want to fade it out,
it's not quite, same speed.
We can just remove the fade so you really see it animating all the way to the side of the screen. Again, with screen sharing, you might see some performance issues as I'm sharing the screen. And again, of note, speaking of performance of the rendering, you're going to get the best performance on the final output URL, which we'll touch on in Singular Studio. So that's where you really are going to want to be, seeing if your graphics are playing, smooth, I'll say. Okay, so the next piece of the puzzle, let's come back to, let's add some text on top of there. So we've got in the widgets, again, the commonly used widgets are up here. If I add the text, it drops a piece of text. Now, let's turn on bounding box. Came in really, really small right on top of this rectangle. So under transformation, our default for the text is at 50. Too. Yeah, it's white text, hard to see. So I'm going to set this to 100 and 100. I'm going to unlock this. So now the text is sitting exactly on top of the rectangle. And again, the parent is what's dictating the area in which the rectangle and the text live. It's the it is the bounding box, we'll call it. Okay, so the text
so 100 of all of the elements inside of a group is going to fill up that group completely.
Exactly. And it's a good point. A lot of people get confused. They'll do scaling in different places. They'll scale here, they'll scale here, they'll scale here. It's kind of a dangerous kind of thing to do, because then you're sort of not realizing where is your sort of master place to scale, right? In this instance, if I do it here, I'm always going to be scaling the entire, all the children underneath this parent group proportionally. Okay, so the next thing is, let's make the text, let's go to the, click on text, and we'll go to the text. These are all the text properties. So let's just change this to maybe like a sort of a dark red. And again, I'll just put it maybe in the center of the screen. And I think the next piece is, again, if we look at the animation, by default, it got a fade. So it's going to do on the out, we had out selected. So it's going to fade out as it comes out. Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I'll click here and remove it. So let's just review where we are. Let's go in and out. Okay, pretty straightforward so far. Again, I'll let you play around with all the various properties of the text widget. I mean, you can see there's lots of properties here. Now, just a word on these two widgets. They are also located in the widget library. So these guys that are up here are also located here. And there are a lot of widgets to explore, and we're building them all the time, and they do a whole host of things. So for example, let's just focus in on the text. If I start typing in text, you'll see the text widget here. Here's text ticker, text animation. So just to make you aware of that, this is the widget sort of library to get access to that. Again, it's under add widget. Okay,
and you may have seen, just really quick, you may have seen some widgets in there that you're not going to see in your account. That's just because we have some stuff in development. You could develop your own widgets. I know that gets into some advanced territory, but yeah, there's a lot of possibilities.
Show dev versions is available to me because I have developer access in my user settings. So if we are doing development widgets, you can have access to those as well. So that's a nice feature. Okay, so I think the next piece is, let's go to the text, click on text, and let's name it. I'll put my name in here, Steven. Okay, let's talk about creating a control node. So on a control node, we know that we are going to want our Singular Studio rundown, our operator, to have access to the very least this text. So clearly they're not going to do it here. So we need to start building control nodes. Okay, so all I have to do is, anywhere in the user interface where you see this fine dotted line, if I click on one of these, it brings up another dialog box. So let's look at text, and then it prompts us to give it a name. So in this case, I'm just going to rename this. I'm going to call it title. And I'm going to hit add, and it pops up down here. So these things that you're building are called Fillin Forms, or control nodes. The more generic term would be Fillin Forms. So if I start typing in hello, it's going to change the text. So if I say Friday, because that's today, it pushes the text over here to the control node. So the manner in which, when I type stuff in here, the manner in which it updates, right now it's updating like a typewriter. As I type, it updates, just literally just bangs on the character. So if you want to change that behavior, right, the update animation can be enabled. So if I just activate it, and now when I start typing, let's just clear this out and I'll type in hello. As I type in, you can see it does a fade on each character that comes in, on each new data, the data being the text. Now I can change the manner in which that update happens, and it's really quite powerful. For example, how should it animate when it leaves the screen And how should it animate when the new data comes in? That's why we have an out and an in. So let's just do one of my favorites is a translate. And I'm going to go a little faster here. Translate up quickly, power 3. Translate in, down, a little slower, power 3. And then what's that going to look like? You guessed it. You see it leaves up, and then on its way out, you see how it animates up? Because it's set to up, translate up very quickly. And then on the new one, it's a little bit slower. So it gives a nice sort of reveal, if you will. Okay, so enough on that. I think, Kathryn, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to, we added animations. We kind of went animations and we touched on update animations. I think I'm going to go over to Studio, because then I can go back and forth between Studio and this very basic composition, which just contains a rectangle. And then we can really start dressing this up a little bit, maybe do a nice gradient or something.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And just a quick comment though, if you're, after watching this, if you want to go through the written tutorial, there are some bits that we went a little bit out of order, and that's pretty organic. Like when you start working in Composer, you're going to find your flow and when you want to do certain steps at what times. So for example, I think we flipped 4 and 5 control nodes and animations. Steven was working with the animations before adding a control node. So if you get tripped up there, don't worry, you don't have to do it in that particular order. The next step I just added is you can repeat everything that Steven's done for additional overlays. We're just going to stick to one for now when we move into Studio, so we can start to understand the operating side of things. But I just wanted to mention those things in case anyone got confused. So
it's a good point. It's a challenge to stay on for me, I know, to jump around because there's so many nuances. But I think at the base we have a rectangle, we have an animation, we have some text. Let's go back to the dashboard. Now we need to turn this composition, I should say, import this composition into a control application. We got 2 methods: right-click, new control app, or just with it selected, go new control app. And when you do that, you're going to be prompted with 3 choices here. For today, we're going to use Studio. I won't dive into Uno or the Beta Studio 2 right now, just regular Studio. It's going to prompt you for a name. I'll use the default. We append the word app, create. Now we have an app. I'll double click it. A new tab opens up and we're in Singular Studio.
So what this is it's your control interface for your operator. So in Composer, you were building kind of the look and the animations and everything. You were exposing your text widget to a control field for your operator to have access to. This is the operator environment. This is what you click around in when you're actually live.
Yeah. So in this user interface, the blue button is your go-to, and you can see it sees the lower third one, again, because it's in a subcomposition. If it was just a widget at the root level, just widgets spilled out here, here, like for example, a rectangle, it's not going to see this. It's only going to read this. So again, back to the app, I'll add the lower third, click on it. It shows up in preview. There's the control node, play it. It takes it out. And as you know, this is the output URL. So if I just copy that, new browser tab, paste, that's now you've seen end to end. Basically, the 3 big pieces to the puzzle. We've seen the composition, a control app, and the final output. Okay, so let's go back over to, let's start back at the first base, we'll call it, as baseball's just started yesterday. Okay, so let's start doing a little bit more. I think the next thing I'd like to do is let's expand on this. Let's come back to the composition navigator and let's show, I mentioned I was going to come back to this. And why is this so powerful? So I have one lower third. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard, down arrow, right arrow, backspace 2. And then I'm going to go right arrow to go in it, down, go to the rectangle, and I'm just going to change this to like blue. Okay, why am I doing that? Because let's go bring up the navigator. And now let's take both of these out. Let's bring in the first one, and then let's bring in the second one. And notice how the first one, because they're in the same logic layer, They cannot be in at the same time. So this sort of protects you from yourself, from maybe having two different types of lower thirds in a composition, but you never want them to be in at the same time. So this is basic state logic. We're keeping track of the state of the graphic, whether it's in or whether it's out. But you notice they sort of collide. They're sort of hitting each other. So you can delay that transition in the logic layer simply by going here and hitting auto is sort of your go-to, but you can set a custom value. So the nice thing about this is now it's going to complete its animation. And I have bounding box on, I believe, or do I? Yeah, I do. So you kind of see that trailing. It's going to complete the animation before the other one comes in. So super powerful. This is a really, really nice tool. And you can make as many logic layers as you want. You can assign them, unassign them. And so now let's go back over to the control app. Now, if I click plus, I don't see that lower third too, because I need to reread this composition, meaning there's no dynamic real-time updating between this composition and what's going on here. They are entirely separate. And I will come back to that point in a minute, because I think it's once this concept is sort of in your mind, I think it becomes much easier to understand the relationship between the control part and the building part. Creation, control. Okay, so how do I get that new graphic in? I simply refresh the composition. You can do that here. You can also do that. We have it in two places, upper right-hand corner, refresh. So let's do it here. Refresh. It's going to say, are you sure you want to refresh? What we're actually doing is we're reloading the composition. And I'll explain that in a moment. So what just happened is the entirety of this composition in the state in which I left it just got imported into this application. So what that means is back to the dashboard, inside this app is a duplicate copy of this composition. So every time you refresh, you are rereading this composition and bringing it in here. And I'm not going to go any deeper down the rabbit hole on that. Back to this point, since I refreshed, I get the lower third too. So I can click here, click on this one. I get it in preview, take it in. Let's bring in the second one. And you can see now the first one, and there's the logic layer in action. Okay.
Something we could also mention really fast here, Steven, is if you duplicate the same exact graphic, you can do that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can duplicate it in your rundown. And that's really the power of Studio and the business of creating, I guess, templates in Composer, is you can create one line lower graphic, duplicate it out like 6 times, and then pre-populate the data of, oh, this is this guest that's on my show, or this is this talking point. So I don't know if you want to do that right now, Steven, just to show people that you can duplicate a graphic.
Here or duplicate it in the composition?
Yeah, no, in the control.
Okay. So I'm going to get rid of the first one, and this one I'm going to double click. I'll call this one Steven, and it's already set to Steven, and I'll duplicate this one, and I'll call this one. Oh, let's call this one Joe for no other reason, just because it popped into my head. And then this one's called Joe, and then you can duplicate this one, and we can call this one.
So this is really what your operator is probably going to be doing before, or even during a show, depending on the type of data you like to show your audience.
It's a good point, because I have seen some users, obviously at various levels of animation background and stuff, they actually find their way into the composition and start duplicating within here and naming them here, which, in some instances I can understand if you have a known locked off set, and every time you make a new app, you want those graphics to show up without ever having to enter anything in here. There's reasons why you might want to do that, but generally speaking, this is where you're going to be doing your data entry. These are templates, right, that you're populating with data here. There are some instances where you might want to lock in a graphic and not even be able to preview it, or I should say change the data in here. But let's go back to the composition for a second. And I want to do, let's say you built these two graphics, and we'll make it look a little prettier here in a minute. I say, this is my my version 1. So I'm going to go to revisions, and I'm just going to call this version 1.0. And then let's just say, and I just saved a snapshot. Let's say, I make another one, and we're going to call this one 3. Okay. And on this one, again, let's go down into that rectangle just so we can see that they're different. And I'll make this one maybe orange. Okay. A navigator, I'm going to bring it up with Control F, out. And there you go. We got our 3. There's the first one. There's the second one. There's the third one. Okay. And let's go over to the app and refresh just like we did before, just to review this. It's going to read. Now we're going to have 3. But then you say, you know what? I don't want that graphic. I'm going to come back here and I want to restore. You can simply restore. So I'm recalling up the version that only had 2. There it is. I go back over to the app and you notice the app, it's still going to be here because it didn't get notified that I got rid of one unless I refresh. And if I refresh, obviously that one won't be available. One more little nuance to this, and this one has come up a few times. Let's say I come over here and I rename this. Instead of 1, I call this 1. Now I go refresh. And I'm using this template, lower third 1 right here. So there is one little sort of a gotcha. You're going to get this big, nasty, scary dialog box. And all this is telling you is that if you change the name of a subcomposition in the root composition, Studio is not going to be able to resolve that name change. So you're going to lose these graphics that are saved in here. And that's gotten a few people a few times. It's just the way the architecture works. So again, now when I come here, I have the one called 1, not with the number 1. Okay.
Yeah, and then you have to repopulate the data that you want for your show.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and restore back to our 1 and 1.
So just as a recap, the restore feature is just, it's a save point. There's only so many undos that you can do. And I think it tracks the undos back to the first moment that you actually opened that browser of the day. So if you close out and then you reopen it, do a few things, it's only going to go back to the second time you reopened it. So you can only go back so far, I guess is what I'm trying to say with undos. So it's good to do these revision snapshots so that you could go back to, like, I don't know, Monday's work, for example, if you think that that's an important save point.
I'm just taking kind of a little side note here, right here, and I'm looking at comments. Do we have any questions that we should sort of deviate, or are we good? You're keeping me honest.
I think there's some good conversation happening on the side. One person did ask if we could build a bug. So do you want to just throw a bug graphic in there? It's the same process as a lower or anything else, but
yeah. So if we take, I'm going to just let's just turn this lower third into a bug. So again, I'm going to bring it in, and I'll go over here. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's duplicate the lower third, hit enter, and let's just call this bug. Okay. And now let's bring up our navigator so we can make sure that the bug, let's take the lower third out. You know, the navigator is coming up and down quite frequently. And again, the way I built this, since I'm doing all of the scaling up here, it's going to be real easy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to anchor, turn on bounding box. And you see the anchor points up here. I'm going to anchor it here, and then I'm going to go up to position and pin it into the upper left-hand corner. And then I'm going to say, okay, how far over do I want to go? I don't know, maybe, not size. I want to go maybe 10. Let's go 2. And then maybe you want to bring it down. I don't know, negative. Sorry, I have a new keyboard. So I spilled coffee on my other keyboard. So that one's gone. So let's just say this was your bug. Okay. Now the text, obviously, let's just say you always want this to be live, you can just go up here, unlink it from this control node, and then subsequently click this little guy here next to the control node and delete it. Because maybe you say to yourself, I'm never going to change this. It always says live. And then you maybe want to make it bold and add a little spacing. And maybe more. Let's get it a little bit bigger. And you know what? That's
another tip with that whole business of not having control nodes. You as an artist might want your operator to not have any control over that particular graphic. So like Steven said, I always wanted to say live, then there's no need to expose that, text field to your operator. Or I always want it to be red text, then you don't have to expose that red color to the operator, because you can expose other properties like color and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know if you want to show that.
Let's do that right there, and then I'm gonna dress this up a little bit with a little bit of an effect. Turning off bounding box, back to the text within the live bug. Let's hit text, and let's just call this text. And to Kathryn's point, let's say you want to be able to change the color of that text and the color of the rectangle behind it. Well, you guessed it, color, text color, rectangle, And let's rename this base color, something maybe a little bit more descriptive. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to change the fill, base color fill add. And when I start changing this, it's going to change. Again, remember that update business? That doesn't hold true for just text. It's also for when you're changing colors. So for example, on the base color, I'm going to go to my update tab. I'm simply going to enable this and not mess with this. And now every time I change the value, it's going to do a fade. And you might want that because that will happen in programs. So you can do what's called a hot swap, right? You have one graphic up and then you can transition, send new data to it while it's on air and have a nice transition from one to the next. Maybe in a live bug scenario, you don't really need that. So I'll go ahead and deactivate that. If you don't need an update animation, I would simply recommend not enabling it. It's just sort of best practices. It's not going to hurt anything, but it certainly doesn't do you any benefit. Let's make this extra bold.
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm just interjecting here. A couple more questions. Can you add an image in there and then we can talk about adding a logo or something? And
yeah, I can. Let me just add a little gradient to this and then I'll add a lower.
Sure.
Why don't we do on the lower third? Actually, Navigator's up. Clearly, I don't want them both on the same logic layer. So go up here
Right.
and let's call this bug. Now, bug might be the only bug in the composition. So I don't have to put everything on a logic layer. It doesn't hurt to have one thing on its own logic layer. So it just means that now they're separated. There's no logic between those two. Okay.
They're not kicking each other off screen, basically. And just to touch on that really fast, let's say he adds a lower third 2-line. So there's 2 lines of text. That it would make sense that it would also be on that lower logic layer, so that if you take in your lower 2-line, it just kicks off the 1 line. You don't have to sit there and be like, oh, I have to take out my lower 1 line first before I take in the 2-line. It's just it's ease of operation type stuff. So
yeah, exactly. That's again the state logic that's within the Navigator. That's state logic. Okay, so let's add a logo to the left of my name, like Kathryn just said, and then I'll go back and add some gradients on top of these things and make it look a little prettier. So I'm going to turn on bounding box. And again, I have this, my text. I'm going to go to transform and I'm going to anchor it to the right so that I can give a little room for a logo to the left. So I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to make it a nice even 85. And then what I want to do is I want the text left justified. Okay. And now let's add the image. So the image, again, I'm going to go click up here, image. Nothing happens when you click the image, but it's living within this box. And why does nothing happen? It needs a URL. It needs an image path. So if I click on the checkerboard area, I just got a question, what file format does it accept? In terms of importing files, just real quick, I'll answer this one. Anything that plays in a web browser or displays in a web browser, GIFs, JPEGs, PNGs with and without transparency, SVG, can all be imported into your dashboard and used. So basically anything that plays in a web browser. Okay, so let's go ahead and get an asset. I think there's a logo. Let's use our Singular logo here. And the logo shows up here. Again, the bounding box, it's set to, the image is set to 100%. So I'm going to anchor it to the left, turn off this guy, and I know it's probably going to be 15 because I made the text 85, so it's going to be right there. Does that make sense? I think, Kathryn, right? Image.
sorry,
Okay.
I'm answering some questions in the.
Oh, no, it's fine. So we've got an image and we're going to want to change that image. So again, hit the image tab, exposing the properties for the widget. And let's just call this logo. And now if I change this path, again, this path, if I click on the actual image, it'll take it to the browser. These are things that I've uploaded under new upload. You can upload here and you can also upload from the dashboard itself. Or you can just take a URL from any web page, right? Right click on any image that you find and drop the URL from the web page. I can show that if anyone doesn't know how to do that. So now let's go to the Navigator and let's see, it's just going to come in and you can see the little fade on the logo, but that's again, that default that we put in every time you drop in a widget. So again, I'm going to go in there and I can leave it, or what I might want to do is, in the end of the out, let's just get rid of it here. Okay, and out. and in. Okay, we like what we've done. Let's go to revisions. Let's just call this version 1.1. Back over to the app, refresh, and the new graphics will show up. I've got live, lower one, bang, there it is. Pretty straightforward. Okay, now the live bug comes in sort of odd, right? Because I just copied the lower third. I think I just copied the animation. So again, back over to the composition, go to the live bug, right? Instead of a translate down, let's go left. Left. Let's see what that looks like. Navigator, out, in. Okay. And now let me go double back to that gradient I was talking about. Let's say you want a little gradient on top of this rectangle. I am going to add another rectangle that's exactly on top of this base color. And let's go to the base color and change this. Let's make this sort of like a blue in the background. And I've got a rectangle on top of the blue rectangle. I'm going to do a little trick to kind of give this a little bit more style. Under rectangle, click on fill. Let's go with linear, right? And now you can play around with these gradients. So for example, I can do an angle, get rid of the midpoint. Now I've got a little gradient from purple to white. If I drop this to black, but maybe make it a little transparent and all the way up to white at the top and maybe make it, I don't know, 20. But you can really get some nice subtle glowing effects here. Maybe make the top edge a little hotter. This is sort of a go-to one for our team. We're using this kind of stuff all the time. So I can kind of glow. You can keep the aspect ratio. So I'm keeping the aspect ratio. You can see how I'm getting a little bit of a white edge on the top. And then on the bottom, I can play around with this. So I won't go too deep into this thing, but you can play around with this gradient effect and get a lot of really cool effects. Again, the red text doesn't look so hot against that. So let's make it white.
If you drop out that bounding box, it'll be easier to see that gradient as well.
There you go.
Really good with gradients.
So
cool.
That's one way to do gradient, a lot of gradient control. I'll just, as long as I'm on gradients, because I think it's one that gets widely used. Again, we're just using basic we've only used 3 widgets in Singular here: rectangle, text, and image. And they're the most commonly used widgets probably because you're changing the variables of them all the time, or I should say the properties. Okay, so let's go up here. There's another way to do gradients, a little bit more advanced, but I don't think it's out of crazy. Go to gradient. We have a gradient widget, and now this gets really intimidating, right? You're like, what is this? Well, you can jump out to these websites and grab much more sophisticated, like easier gradients. So let's say you like this one.
CSS, yeah.
CSS. I know this is not something I thought I would even cover in this, but honestly, I don't think it's too bad. You just basically click one, copy it, come back over to your Singular composition, select all, paste. And now I've got, you can see it's popped. So I can say that's much better than the one I just did. Then I always want it blue, for example. Let's even get rid of this. And that's my new gradient. Done.
That's
now,
nice.
One trick here under effects, you can start messing with the hue. I think you can you? Or maybe not. Oh, I'm sorry. On the
Now with the, I don't know if you can do that with the gradient. Oh yeah, you.
Oh yes, you
yeah.
can. I forgot. You don't even need this. So
you
can just
have
the gradient tool. And then again, this is going to be a numeric value. So it's going to be a little odd. Like what's 80? Why is 80 pink? Well, there's a way you could do that. But, okay, I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes because sometimes I do. Anyways, there's our live bug using the gradient. And Kathryn, we're 40 minutes in. I want to make sure we haven't missed any. Again, the purpose of this webinar was basics. And again, I think the big takeaway I wanted to show people is this back and forth. Again, let's go back over to the app, Control App, Studio. Oh, and I don't see it, obviously, refresh. And best practices should be back here. Sorry, I kind of went back and forth a little too quick. Version 1.2. Again, I wouldn't recommend version 1.2. I would give something a little bit more descriptive. So you remember, oh, added live bug, right? That's a real snapshot, something that, what is version 1.2? I have no idea. So it should be something more like added live bug, right? And I had a typo there, but we won't look at that. Okay, so and there it is. There's the live, bang, boom, done. We can change the text. Hello. I don't think I have I do have an update animation on it.
That's something,
And
so
you-
right there, if you just clicked update, that's something we haven't talked about. This is stuff we can cover in a future webinar in terms of like operator tips. But it's kind of a protective measure. If you're updating, if you go back to, I don't know, update the live bug again, actually, the text. So Steven's going to update it. You'll see it change in the preview, right? But you don't see it live because you want to make sure it's right before you push it live. And that's what that update button's for. There's a way to override that and push it straight to live. But
know
that's
what?
not something we can do off the bat.
Yeah,
You're gonna
we
do it. All right.
but now you've teased them. Back to the composition. Watch this. Text, control node. There's live. Guess what? Immediate update. I'm going to hit save. Back to the back to the Navigator. I'm sorry, back to Studio. Refresh. Because you did it, Kathryn. That's your fault. I'm going to go here.
Sorry.
Watch now. It's immediately updating on air. There's a lot of, I'm glad we covered this one because there are a lot of instances where you don't want to mess around with that update. Sports scores, for example, or just something where you hit the output here. You just want always one output. You don't care about preview. There's some things where you just go. It's just go time, right? Boom. And that's really, 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 really helpful. Kathryn, I think that's probably enough for just the basics, but I do want to touch on this, and you kept me honest yesterday when we did our little rehearsal. There's a
All right,
lot of people.
let's take a breather though, because I think this
questions.
was maybe overkill for some people.
Well, we don't know. These people might be smarter than us. I'm sure they are.
Probably. Yeah, we covered a lot. I've 2 times. Oh, keep going. 2 times now I've posted a link to a written version of this. There's also a video, pre-recorded video that we've done on building a basic composition. So I recommend going through it a few more times to really just get this stuff drilled into your brain. But is that enough of a breather? And then we can keep
No, I've got 2 people that say, keep going, keep going. We got a lot of people in this webinar right now. I wanted to, should we go deep? There we go. Okay, so love it, Steven. Deep. Okay. I think I'm not afraid to show this, and I'm going to open up this composition called lower third with script, because there's a number of you out there that are using Singular compositions that maybe we had a hand in helping you build, or you got thrown on your lap and you're like, okay, Steven, I just watched your demo, but I have no idea why this graphic is not working. It's the purpose of this webinar was basics, but I need to at least expose you to something like this. In this graphic, for example, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go in. Okay. Now here's the header. We're calling this the header. It says live. And there's the control node, and I'm going to type something. Hello, I'm going to type in Steven, and nothing happens. That is because, and let's look at the properties. Nothing's even connected. You're like, how in the heck is this going on? It's because when we do things, there is a whole nother level of Singular that you can add on top of a basic composition, and that's in scripting. And you can see all this rigmarole here in the text. That's HTML formatted text. So if I edit the word live here, you're going to see it do some cool stuff, because I'm wrapping this text, right, with give a background gradient with these parameters, padding and all this business, but I can't easily connect this to a control node. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, other than what I'm about to show you is right here, top of the composition is a script editor. This opens up Pandora's box.
Don't go in here if you're not ready for it.
Exactly. It's just to show you. So now you will see what we're doing is we're taking the data that's entered into the control node, running it through this script. Okay. Here it is. It's actually global script and regular script. And if I start typing, don't be afraid of scripting. So anyways, so you see, I brought up the 12, and you're going to see the script taking place. You do not see the script executed here in the composition, and that trips a lot of people up. Like same size text in this business, like nothing's happening. Like, Steven, nothing is happening. Again, over to the script editor, and you're going to see a lot of you guys are using compositions that have some slick logic that's happening here. And that's all I want to say about this, because we will do more advanced stuff, scripting. We have some good examples here. If anyone who's watching right now says, you know what, Steven, I get it. I understand what you're doing. There are some nice basic examples of what I'm showing you here. Again, templates, resources. This one, for example. Actually, let's do this one, because it's only one piece of text. Use this template. It downloaded it. It's called custom font, style, composition, script, outline, gradient. It's one heck of a name.
That was me.
So I can open, right click, I can open it. Oh, and by the way, I can open it directly to the script editor because, again, I'm going to go back. I'm going to open up to composition. I think this stuff is, I don't want to call it basic, but I have a feeling that, okay, again, here's the same thing. Just one piece of text, one subcomposition, one piece of text, and nothing's happening. Script editor. You guessed it. And I'm not going to show you the script. I'm not going to show you how it's doing, but these are great examples. That's it. Kathryn, pull me off a ledge. We're out of here. We're out of this.
Yeah, I think just to recap on scripting, essentially the point of it really is to be able to do stuff that the composer doesn't actually allow you to do. That's why you kind of veer in that direction if you want to. There's a lot of stuff you can build where you don't need a script at all. This is just advanced territory if you want some really cool stuff.
And you can do stuff like, again, back to this very first one. I mean, check this out. I have one lower third, and guess what? If I don't type anything in the subtitle, I get a nice big text here. If I say subtitle, I get the text. It pushes the title up here and here. If I do same size text, I get two pieces of text of the same size. Plus, I've got this going on. Plus, I've got this. Well, this is not scripting. This is just change the whole thing to blue, change the whole thing to red. Any other questions?
Yeah, so this is a very sophisticated lower graphic going on here.
This part is, I don't think this is that bad. This one's not that bad.
No, that's not scripted, right?
No, that and actually, thank you very much for pointing that out. Let's go back to this composition. Check this out. Let's go back and forth between news. No, it's happening here. We're good. And all we're doing, this is a selection control node, which I could make a new one, and I'll just call this demo. Okay, and when I click on it, I have to define what I want to do. Well, let's look at what this one's doing. First,
but yeah.
Okay, what's this one doing? I give it a name, a title, so I'm calling it news and breaking news, and I'm giving it a hex value. That's a color value, right? And I'm assigning it to the color. It's connected to type, and so all I'm doing is I'm going back and forth between pushing these. You see the values changing right here? This one's not bad. I don't consider this advanced at all. I think this is not too, now again, if you make a mistake like this and this thing goes red, it's because we need a simple little JSON structure here. That's all this is. But if you mess it up, oh, I don't know what's going on. It's not, well, simply bring in another one, bring in another control node and you see the structure. It's pretty straightforward. So it's a very nice way to change colors from a drop down. I think.
And I would recommend sorry, Steven, for creating this. So this is kind of a new control node selection. It's made our lives a lot easier. I think it's an incredible control node. What I recommend is creating the control node. So you can create control nodes in the actual panel itself, starting there. I would recommend creating it the way that Steven demonstrated, which is, let's just say we want to do vertical alignment or another drop-down property where we want to create a control node.
Let's go back to our demo one. Let's go back to this one just because it's our base simple
let's
one.
Get out of there.
What Kathryn's referring to is, for example, let's say you want to control the opacity of, I don't know, pick something, Kathy. Maybe the live bug.
I don't know, okay. Yeah, that might be different though. I was saying create a control, like a selection control node on a property that already has a drop down, but on
a property that already
do what you were gonna do. Let's see.
Okay, so like let's just say I think the first, well, I think maybe you had two pieces there. If we go to control node,
there was a lot there.
And I say I want to make a number control node. I'm not quite sure where I want to connect it to yet. I can just give it a name. Let's just call this I think you know what, I think I want to control the hue.
School or something. Yeah. Okay.
And I typed it wrong. I gotta, let's see that. Oh, These
Oh,
you can
no,
change
don't.
the min, max, and
It's
I don't
more-
want to go into this.
it's more deep.
Honestly, I don't think that's that bad. What is going on with my keyboard? I apologize. Again,
It's just not for beginners.
do not spill spilling coffee into your keyboards for beginners. That's what I did. All right, so this is just sitting out in the ether. It does nothing. It's a number control node. It's connected to nothing. Well, let's connect it to hue, because I named it that. Select the field, hue, and now I can play around with the hue, which is going to push those values from pink. See the live bug going to different because I'm pushing the hue around. If you don't like that one, click here, delete it. It disconnects it from it automatically. So I guess the point of this is you can make the control nodes here checkbox, for example. Let's say
This is a good one.
Yeah, checkbox, and let's
connect this to an image. Can we do that?
On off. Okay, so let's go back. Actually, let's do it in here. In this guy, let's go checkbox on off. And I'm going to connect that to the visibility of this guy, and then I can turn off the logo on and off.
There's just a lot of properties that you can control and expose to your operators. You can get really creative, and I'm sure we'll see stuff out of you guys that we've never seen before, just because there's so many different variables going on in Composer.
Absolutely. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, you've got control nodes that you can connect to properties of widgets. Again, these are properties. These are widgets. Widgets, properties of a widget, connect the appropriate control node to them. Now, just a couple things like text area, and number can be used in a lot of cases interchangeably, depending on what you're doing. So I think more questions. I want more questions. I want people, let's see, what's the difference between control? Oh, data nodes. Ooh.
We won't dive into data nodes, but do you want to give an overview of the difference?
Okay, so they are decidedly different. So data nodes are, if you create a data node and add one, well, you need to create one using our REST calls. So a data node is this is more advanced. I'll do it briefly, but we should make a note of this and make I think we have a video on this, right? I know we have a video on this.
We have a live stream on this one, yeah. Yeah,
we have a live stream on this one. So I will point you to our YouTube website and our support portal. There's some good stuff in there, but at its base, a data node is an endpoint for data. So if you create this endpoint, you can then connect incoming data that's getting pushed into Singular and update text variable, text or images or properties of a widget. So I'll leave it at that. But we do have we do have a video and help desk on that. I see this one about copying and pasting from one composition to another. Yes, you can. You can copy them. If you see some oddities, let's take this one. Let's copy this live bug. Let's go back to the dashboard. Basic compositions. I'm going to go a little faster here. Composition. Let's call this demo 2 because I make a brand new composition. Let's see what happens when I paste this thing. And now let's do control. There it is. Now, there are some oddities in the copying and pasting. If you see some oddities, hit F5 before you do the paste or before you do the copy and the paste, like F5, refresh the browser. If your graphic, if it is a more advanced graphic and you're copying a graphic that has a composition script, you're probably going to have to, go and get the script, copy the script independently of the overlay. So it's not perfect, but for basic stuff, basic comps, yes, you can copy and paste between compositions. Any other, where can we find the link to the written tutorial?
I'll post that one again.
To the written tutorial, Kathryn will post that.
Do we want to go back into Studio, do one last refresh, and then just so we can see where you've landed?
I added an on-off here. Let's go back to this guy. Let's see, where did we go? Go time. I like that one, go time. Now, again, I'm not going to lie. These aren't the most compelling graphics I've built today. We built a lot of graphics at Singular, but we're just trying to keep it basic. And really the purpose of this at this point is just to listen to the To everybody out there that is interested, I think I just duplicated this one. So I've got one live bug, my go time one, and this is a live. Oh yeah, that was just a duplicated there. So not the prettiest graphics we've ever built. But again, if you want to, that's a good point. If you want to play around with some stuff that's pre-built, again, template library, it's a lot of great stuff in here. I know I'm in resources, download any of these and then play around with them. So I don't know.
So these are all, they'll open right up into the control interface. A lot of these are studio instances is what we call them. That some of these are Unos, which is a different control interface. And I don't want to get into that necessarily, but if you're in here in this webinar and you realize, oh, I don't necessarily think I need to build custom stuff, I just want to maybe edit a pre-built thing, go into the template library and play around, because we've exposed a lot of these control properties like we've covered for color and all sorts of different stuff. So you can reskin everything and make it look like your brand and so forth. You know what, Kathryn, again, another one that you and I said we wouldn't talk about, but I think because I went under templates, because someone asked about that live bug, I selected bug left, right? And now let's go ahead and open it. And then someone just asked, can you play move files in a composition? You certainly can, but you can't upload movie files into our dashboard. When you create a Singular account, the asset management, the dashboard where we upload is going, we do not support uploading of MP4 or just video files. We don't,
yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't play them. You just have to put them on a different server. A whole host of reasons. We may open that up later. A lot of reasons why we have not supported that yet. But let me come back to point. Oh, this is an Uno. That's why I was like, I don't know if we should. All right. This is a new control interface that we've been. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, this is a new experience called Uno, and Uno meaning it does one thing. Again, in this user interface, if you download one of these and you want to go edit the composition, it's a little different. Edit the composition. What it's going to do, it's going to pull the composition out of that Uno, because remember how I mentioned the composition lives within it, and now you can start editing it. This is a really nice one. There's a bunch of bugs in here. And let's say you make a change. I'm just going to make one change to this, and then I'll keep an eye on those questions, because that's what I really want to do. I just made one value change. Let's go back to the Uno. And guess what? It's asking you to update the composition. So when you do that, it'll reread the composition. Decidedly different than how Studio works. Studio is a little bit different between, there's no like link to the composition back and forth. So it's not a question of one being better than the other. It's just two different kind of workflows. More questions. I love the questions. The requirement. Let's see. Yeah, we are recording for sure. And I think we're getting close to an hour. So I do want to, will we add a new, let's see. I want to show, I think we're almost done, Kathryn, unless there's anything. Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Probably information overload for you guys, but it'll be good to go back and go through it. I might be underestimating the audience here. And it's tough for us. I'll just say in sort of summation, it's hard for us to say because our user base is very diverse. We have very beginner users, and Singular is a pretty powerful tool. And I've only scratched the surface of all the types of things you can do, all the way to interactivity and things I don't really want to go into right now. So we're aware of that, and we're trying to find that sweet spot. So we really need the feedback when we get questions and comments, and even on the support channel, if you want to give feedback or you have questions, great place to go. Oh yeah, I need to post that link really fast. Yeah, post that link. I just want to wrap it up because I do want to show you, if you are on the beginner side, I'm going to show this one, and you can see this screen, right? And I wanted to show this at the end. I told Kathryn I really wanted to show this. My good buddy, Sean Weed at Local News Live, started out as a beginner. He found us over a year ago, and within a day, he started putting graphics on air, which has since evolved into what you see on the screen. Local News Live and many of the gray stations that are under the gray umbrella, if you will, use Singular for their OTT desk. The Local News Live specifically, everything you see on the screen right here, that ticker, is interfaced with data, the time and temperature, and they do all of their graphics that have data or dynamic data is 100% done with Singular, and it's a 24/7 operation. They've been using it for well over a year. I just use this as an example of someone who started out basic, really basic, and we've grown with them and they've embraced it and they're using it and are doing an absolutely tremendous job. So if you're interested in seeing or you want to see what other people are doing with Gray, I'm sure there's a number of great people and the great team and the stations watching. Thanks for all your support, by the way, and as well as all of our other our entire customer base for using us. But again, I'm really proud of what these guys have been able to do and embrace Singular. So I wanted to share that as a real world example of someone who started out basic and is now doing what I think is really beautiful looking graphics. So I think I can stop my share screen.
Thanks guys for being so
Thanks.
active in the chat. That was nice.
Yeah, it was really good. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. We got Juan in there and Peter. Let's see. Is there a Discord? We had no, we didn't have Discord. We had a Slack channel for a while, didn't we? But we didn't have that anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, we're a small team, so it can be hard to moderate that sort of stuff. But if you log into the support portal, I'll send another, I'll write that down. It's support.singular.live. You can log in and comment on articles and stuff. And we'll answer, and hopefully other people will answer your question. So let me just post that really fast. Live. Okay, so this support link right here, you can find tons of articles. All the stuff we've covered, I've posted several times the link to the beginner's guide for building custom compositions, which is what we've covered today, but there's lots of other stuff there. So yes, we would love more of a community because that's awesome. So
yeah, YouTube channel, support channel, download the template library. There's some nice things in resources. So yeah, we're really happy to have done this, and we'll be doing more. I think this is really successful. I think we got the
I agree.
Response was quite strong. I mean, way more than we thought, and I think the next time it will be double this, to be honest with you. So hopefully I didn't go into thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the nice comment, and I guess Kathryn, this has been great. Thanks for keeping me on point.
Yes, and enjoy your trip up the coast this weekend. You're driving.
Well, I got one more week here. Okay. You got to put up with me for a week, and then I'm out of here.
Oh, I keep forgetting it's not next week. Okay, well, all right. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.